Welcome to Kindred, hosted by me, Kate, and my sister, Jen. In this podcast, we explore our human relationship to the natural world. In connecting to this planet, we also connect to understanding, compassion, and empathy. How can we see ourselves as not separate or above animals in nature, but a critical and integrated part of an active ecosystem? Through conversations with animal advocates, scientists, conservationists, and many others, we look to inspire a new awareness of how and why we connect to animals in nature in order to repair and restore our relationship to the natural world. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kindred. How are you today, sister? I know we hate talking about weather, but it is March 1st. I'll just say it's just kind of cool that it's March 1st. Hello, March, even though March sucks.
It is a sunny, calm day, so I'm pretty pumped about that.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. We're just shifting into a new season. I think that's always something. And March is a dynamic one, let me tell you, on the East Coast. Woo. It's got real.
I am hopeful, though, that we've had winter in February. Like, it's been cold and proper winter weather. So I'm hoping this is how I make myself feel better, that it will just start to be spring this month instead of some years where we have warm in the winter months and then it gets cold when the months are expected in my brain to be warm. That's not my preference.
We're going to talk about Mother Nature in a little bit.
Listen.
So, but I agree. But yeah. So yes, welcome to Kindred. I feel like this is your doorway to the power of nature and wildlife. Like the dusty old musty coat closet in the Narnia series. Remember that? Where we learn to, at the very least, respect animals and nature, and that we might think they are less than us, maybe even gross or mysterious. Like I was thinking the other day, can we just cover this in an episode? How is it that deer haven't yet encoded or imprinted in their genes and DNA that cars hit them at the precise moment that you're passing them and they run out in front of you? I don't know how they don't know that yet. And I'm not trying to shame them. I'm just curious of how
they haven't
all happens.
Evolved to not have that happen by now.
These are questions that we should cover in our podcast.
I wish you could ask a deer, but maybe you could ask a deer expert.
Yes.
Do they actually jump out the moment you're there, or are they already starting jumping?
Well, here's the thing. If you look at, think about prey and predator. Prey do need to conserve their energy, right? So they're not going to start all going haywire if there are lions around, because they can't all run and lose. So they do have to wait a bit to sort of decipher. So I wonder if this is part of what deer do. Like in the moment that they're like, oh shoot, I need to run, that they do, and they just always pick your car instead of the other direction.
Well, and maybe because cars go faster than predators could ever go. So that it actually is a survival instinct. I mean, have you ever hit one? I actually have, and it's very, very, very traumatic.
No,
very awful.
I say, please move to the side as I'm driving along.
Well,
the energy pushing them away.
Picking up our daughter from a dance class, so it was wintertime, dark out, and it just jumped right off of a bank right into the front of my car. And
yeah, it's terrifying and horrible. I'm sorry.
Terrifying.
Yeah, never forget it. Well, we always say on Kindred, we're tackling the big issues here. So please stay tuned. Don't miss a word. Listen to the whole episode. You never know what you're going to learn. The wisdom drops of Kate and Jen.
We may have learned. We may have some people tuning into the intro for the first time, because as we've recently learned, one of our listeners never listens to the intro, and she was wondering why we don't say more about our guests. Remember that? So
LOL.
If you're new to the intro, welcome, and don't fast forward, because we'll get to some really important stuff.
That's right. Look what you would have missed. Narnia. We went from Narnia to deer. I mean, we know how to cover all the issues immediately. So also, before we do get to our guest today, I just wanted to cover some admin with you all, talk about our Instagram. Please follow us. And we're not trying to all the likes and the follows, but yes, we love them too. But it's really because our Instagram has a lot of pretty enriching content, I would say. We do talk a lot about different stuff. We post articles and just anything that kind of refers either directly to our guests or in and thereabouts the topics. So our Instagram is great. And then please follow us on Apple Podcasts. So I know probably everybody knows this, but in case you don't, if you don't go and click the little check, then it won't download into your podcast feed. And then that's just great to have it just sort of come down. And it also gives us some backdoor information about who's listening and what parts you like better than others. So that's really helpful. And then also, could you please check out our subscriptions that we are offering and the Kindred Plus content you get when you do subscribe. And one thing that's cool about the subscription is that if it's not your vibe, if you're not vibing with our Kindred Plus content, you don't have to continue. We offer a free week, so you can like binge all the content and see what you like, which is just great. I love that. So free, definitely worth it because it's free. And then if you decide to keep supporting us in this way, which would be fantastic, it's $4.99 a month, like a cup of coffee, like we like to say. Also on the website, you can buy us a coffee for any amount, which is a $1 donation, which is also a nice alternative to a subscription. So I think that's
Did
important.
you say what the website is?
How dare you ask that? Because you know I never know. So now I have to look it up. If you're going to bring it up, you're the one who's going to have to say what it is.
Well, I have to write it down and then put it on my computer.
All right. So yes, you can find all that information on kindredpodcast.co. So kindredpodcast.co. So thanks for calling me out on that. Jeez.
Also,
Instagram is the Kindred Pod, just so everyone knows.
And if you listen to an episode that you really like, and you know that there's somebody who also might like it, if you don't know how to do this, I only learned recently how to share an episode with somebody else. So feel free to share.
So you go to the episode, and in the right-hand corner, there's these 3 dots. You push, you push like I'm 1000. You select the 3 dots, and then there's a little table that comes up, and there's a little box with the arrow that goes out and it says share episode, and you click that and off you go. So great contribution, Jennifer, to the admin. Thank you for that, because that is actually super, super important. We love when people share. It's great for, turns out, the entire planet. So, all right, time to introduce you to our guest today. And I'll say a guest that I had a challenge writing up this bio that wouldn't end up being an hour to read. I'll explain in a second. So today we are speaking with Lance Foster, a member of the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. He's a person out with a long, sorry, something's poking me in my sock, a long career with lots of degrees and experience. So a big brain. But it's like our guest himself said, you can't fit an ocean in a teacup, which was hilarious and not wrong. So we are speaking with Lance today about the work he and his tribe are doing in gaining natural entities legal standing and rights, like a person has. So let me just pull a bit this is from Lance's LinkedIn profile. He says, I have 30 plus years of cultural and historical preservation and environmental experience, especially focusing on Indigenous peoples and the land. I am serving our tribe as the THPO, or Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, for my tribe, the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. We focus on issues relating to historic preservation, archaeology, history, genealogy, architecture, planning, traditional culture, language education, natural and cultural resources, and land issues like conservation for plants and animals. So you see why I had to pare this down. He does a lot. And then this is from the Great Plains Action Society, found on their website, greatplainsaction.org. Lance M. Foster, and his native name is Irogre. I think that's how you say it. Irogre.
That's close, at least. Yeah.
Irogre. I will say that. Sorry, Lance, if I butchered that. which means find what is sought, and he is part of the Bear Clan. So Lance is, like we said, a member of the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska, raised in Montana. He received a BA in anthropology and Native American Studies from the University of Montana, as well as an MA in anthropology and an MLA in landscape architecture from Iowa State University. And the list does go on, but you can Google him and find more and more about him. So today we wanted to talk to Lance because he sparked a new perspective for us about how we can protect natural entities like rivers, which is our focus today, and why. And I think the why is really key here. In a world that is experiencing fast-moving climate changes and losing critical landscape and habitat for wildlife, protecting them is obviously critical. There's a lot of people trying to do this work. But I thought when I heard about this movement, I just feel like he offers us a new way, at least for me, of how to do that. And again, the why is what we get into a lot into the conversation we have with him, which was moving and beautiful and deeply connecting to a new perspective of how I can see a river. And he had such a great sense of humor, didn't he? Just so generous.
Amazing. Yeah, he was an absolute joy to talk to. Just so knowledgeable, but also so personable and accessible. And he just offered us a lot of information in a very matter of fact way, but it was
and
just
tangible.
Yes, very tangible. Yes, very, very much so.
And just like you and I, like in the dumbest way, we're like, duh, of course.
Yeah.
We said that so many times. So thanks again to Lance for speaking with us. And like Jen said, please share this episode because it really is incredible. So let's go to Iowa, to his reservation, and grab a cup of tea, a coffee, and sit with us and Lance, and we will see you at the takeaway. Lance Foster, welcome to Kindred, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you would please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay, my name is Lance Foster. I'm a member of the Iowa tribe. My Iowa name is Irogre, which means finds what you are looking for. Bear Clan, and my current position is Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. TIPO is how you say that, THIPO.
Okay.
And, formerly, for 4 years, I was also vice chair, but thank God I'm done with the politics for a while.
Oh, congratulations.
Are you really ever done with politics?
Not today, sir. Sorry.
No, it's a life sentence. So we do all kind of work here. Our main job is to review projects that affect our homelands, and we were located in about 9 different states, centered in the state known as Iowa, which was named after us, after when we were living on the Iowa River, the River of the Iowas. So we also deal with burials, with traditional homelands and traditional sites, sacred places. That's mainly what we do. We do burials. We just do all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And it's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. And I would think deeply meaningful work, and must be so critical to gaining a connection to ancestry and place and the relationship your tribe has to, like I said, place and landscape. Really important. And good luck with continuing all that incredible work. And sort of in that idea of landscape, Lance, I wanted to start with a bit of history of your location, like you were talking about, in the location of the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. And I want to discuss this because today we are going to be focusing on two major rivers that you mentioned in the U.S., Missouri River and the Mississippi River, in context to these rivers as natural entities and the work that you're also doing in gaining these entities civil rights. And the Iowa Reservation is between these rivers, I believe, and these rivers are central to the history of the Iowa and carry a deep meaning for your tribe. So I think it's critical for us to lay a foundation of understanding the who and where we are in this conversation. So can you give us a bit of history of how the Iowa came to be here and what these rivers mean to you and the tribe of Kansas and Nebraska?
Sure. We were known as the land between two rivers. Our homeland was that place between the Missouri and the Mississippi, and all of our land between those rivers was lost in a series of treaties all the way through 1838. And in 1836, we signed a final treaty on that side of the Missouri River, and we were bumped just this side, just west bank of the Missouri River. If you drop between Kansas and Nebraska and hit the Missouri River, that's where our reservation is. And I'm speaking from our reservation today as we talk about. So the Missouri Nishoje, we call it the Turbid River, and Nitonka, the Great River, was Mississippi. So these rivers we saw as being part of life. They were living things. They moved like snakes across the landscape, Washushu, the bends and meanders of the river. And then they joined down there by St. Louis. There was a water being that was put on the cliffs down there by Alton, Illinois, the Piazza, they call it. And all these rivers were living entities, like almost like you have a biome in your body. We've learned about that really our insides. There's so much of us that is not us. When you think of yourself or myself, we're just little planets on our own, right? And the river,
that's right,
that same kind of thing. It is made up of millions, trillions of organisms, both things we can see, fish and stuff, things we can't see, the river beings, and also the little tiny little things. And now all these poisons have been spewed into them from industry, from agriculture, from just human activity. And so we know that around the world, rivers have been given these kind of natural rights, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So we started looking into that ourselves. Now, can we change the way our culture operates, the mainstream culture? Well, people are pretty much oblivious to this way of looking at the world, even though their own ancestors, hundreds if not thousands of years ago, believed the same thing. Mm-hmm. But we've all been kind of colonized in our minds by, Romans and Christianity and all these different things that people have put on us. So we're just kind of groping back to try to recognize the rights that these rivers as beings, as persons, have been given just as much as we have been given the same rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so just sort of in research for our conversation with you, I was literally looking at the map, and I was pretty just surprised to find out that the Missouri River starts way up in Montana in that southwest corner. And it's just like you were saying, it's this artery snaking down through, and it meets up in, like you were saying, in St. Louis. And then you've got this other major, incredible river, the Mississippi, coming down from, I guess, does that feed out of the Great Lakes? Where is that coming from?
There's a series of headwaters up there. One of them's called Lake Itasca.
Okay.
It's not really an Indian name, but it's kind of a pseudo-Indian name.
Okay.
But it rises up there in the headwaters. Doesn't come directly from one of the Great Lakes, but a very wet country.
Okay. And that comes down. And then if you're looking at the map, like these two major arteries are feeding into St. Louis. And then if you look west, you've got the Arkansas coming in, which is another huge one. And you've got the Ohio we're a little more familiar with out here. feeding in, and then that all goes out through New Orleans into the Gulf of Mexico. And when you're looking at these rivers, you really realize that they're sustaining a huge part of this landscape, that basically the whole interior of this country. And it really hit me. I was like, wow, these are hugely important rivers. And out here on the East Coast, outside of Philly, we don't give it a lot of thought. So
Well, it's 30 of our states, 31 states
right.
are by the combined watershed.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's about 6 of the country's rivers.
Wow. Yeah, huge. So yeah, let's dig in. I mean, we've asked you here to talk about this work you're doing in gaining civil rights and legal protection for these natural entities like rivers, and specifically, but not limited to, I'm guessing, the Missouri and the Mississippi. So I was listening to NPR one day and I heard this voice talking, yours, of course, about giving rivers civil rights and legal standing. And it hit me like a 2x4 to the head. And I was like, this out loud in my car, like, this is the way forward. Of course. And, if only it were that simple. But if you would talk to us about, like, what does that mean? Gaining natural entities, legal and civil rights, like using these two rivers as examples, like, and what is the motivation behind this campaign? And why might this seemingly extreme movement to some be a critical step forward in conservation?
Well, realize one thing, that even human beings weren't given rights to begin with. First of all, the idea of having rights, that's endowed by the Creator. It's endowed by existence itself. We, whether it's our country, England before us, recognize that people have rights, and it's in the Constitution. And so it's not giving rights, it's recognizing inherent rights. And so, but then how do you gain legal standing from that? The Constitution gives you legal standing for human beings, but it doesn't for the natural world. And so that is a jump for a lot of people, because for a lot of people, they barely see humans as having souls and inherent rights. Some people don't even recognize human rights.
Right.
So struggle when you're talking about nature, about the rest of us. We indigenous people, we see us just as part of nature. We're not, there's that contrast of man versus nature. We don't have that.
Yes.
We don't think wilderness as being something alien and
separate. Right. Yeah.
So the whole idea has been kind of extrapolated that if human beings have inherent rights just by virtue of being on this earth, then why wouldn't why wouldn't there be natural rights? And a lot of places finally worked with this legally. 2008, of course, Ecuador became the first country to recognize those natural rights of nature in its constitution. And Article 71, nature, which we call Pachamama, where life is reproduced and occurs, has the right to respect for its existence, the maintenance and regeneration of its life cycles, structures, functions, and evolutionary processes.
Amazing.
So continued here on this continent, we had to struggle with DAPL, with the pipelines, Keystone, and everything.
Right.
In 2018, the idea that the destruction of our water, water is life.
Yeah. Yes.
And that. So you can have all the gold in the world, but if you have no water, you die.
Right.
Gold,
yeah, it's okay. pretty basic.
Hello. So I was going to ask you about that, if there were other countries have been doing that. So yeah, I think in our previous conversation, you had pre-interview, you had talked about New Zealand as well. So there's models to follow here too. There's
a lot. 2016, Colombia, Atrato River. 2017, the Wanganui River in New Zealand. The Ganges and Yamuna rivers in India in 2017. Even here in the United States, 2019, Lake Erie. They tried to give Lake Erie rights, but they were shot down by the courts. But 19, the Yurok tribe out there in California, the Klamath River, they recognized that through their tribal sovereignty. See, people don't understand tribes. We're classified as domestic dependent nations, and we have an inherent limited but inherent sovereignty. You cannot take sovereignty. You can only give up sovereignty. And so they were able to recognize the Klamath River as having those rights. 2020, Mississippi, the headwaters of Mississippi, they had water protectors that walked around and did the protection, the prayers and everything for the Mississippi River to recognize its rights. Winona LaDuke and other activists really pushed their case on that. And then so in 2021, knowing what was happening here, we passed also our own tribal resolution recognizing the rights of the Missouri River. The Missouri River borders us. We had a big flood in 2019. We consistently do have floods here, and the river, no matter how many levees you put up against it, the higher the levees, the worse the flooding becomes.
Mm-hmm.
But people want, and it's hard to change minds of people because we are just like stubborn beings, are we not?
We are stubborn beings.
Absolutely. So can you give us an example of like what gaining, so you mentioned the courts, and it made me think of like, give us an example of what the action looks like. Like, are you heading to like state capitol in Lincoln and Topeka and speaking with legislators? Like, what's the action look like?
For us, we will work with states, but there's inherent tension between states and tribes.
Yeah.
The way we work more with the feds, we are like domestic dependent nations. We are under the feds. We often work with the states. We have to work with the states. But there's always, especially when you're dealing with water, states what they want, and we try to protect the waters ourselves. That's a tough thing. So what does this look like? So we know the corporations, they're not even natural entities like human beings or rivers, and they were given legal rights through the court cases to have standing as a person, to be sued and to sue and to have all those legal rights. So we're just saying, if you can give this fictitious paper existence, this kind of legal standing, why wouldn't something like a river, a real thing that existed billions of years, why wouldn't it rights? So if it's not just two-legged people breathing and walking around, if it's this paper thing, why not water itself?
Right.
And of course, no way. But we just say your vision of reality isn't necessarily reality.
And do these victories in places like Ecuador and New Zealand, does that, having that behind you, help in making these cases, or not at all because our country feels different? Or I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, the Klamath, for example, certainly is a good example of a tribe just going ahead and doing that, and then having some support state. So there are all these laws that exist anyway. The Corps of Engineers, and the EPA, they have this water quality laws that they have to try to enforce. Of course, it's really tough because it's all politics at the state level.
Yeah.
But if you add being able to, on the behalf of the river, take cases to court, there's another level of protection that's for everybody. It's for, nature itself is for all the fish that we eat. A lot of the fish down here, I was raised up there in Montana when I was a kid, and the water, the Missouri up there is a very different river than it is down here on our reservation.
Yeah.
The fish here, we ate the trout up there all the time, but down here, you have to limit what you eat because there's so many toxins in the river now.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So this is basically like, well, not basically, but it's actually like getting more complex and really nuanced, like looking at the landscape in a really different way for us, and you sort of creating these new awarenesses and like giving rivers, mountains, trees, not just agency, but spirit. And it's like, how can we see these entities like a river, like living bodies, like almost like their own species, right?
It's interesting, like you said, because people really think of a lot of things that don't have apparent sentience or animistic kind of like a spirit as being alive. I mean, think about it. Little kids talk to their dolls, grown up, when you're trying to start your car in the morning, come on, start you. They're talking to a car.
Darn tootin' truck.
I know. Who are you really talking to? I mean, people name their gun before. you name your house. There's a so and so estate, and the house has kind of a spirit to it. So we are inherently, we recognize the sentience and the awareness and all kinds of things that are not living and breathing. So why not trees? Why not mountains and rivers and the winds and the storms? That one time we all believed all those things had sentience and agency and awareness. And if you treat things that way, you'll be surprised sometimes how they respond.
Well, and like Jen, you and I've talked about this. Like you visit different types of mountains, and if you just sit quietly for a minute and you just sit and you're in a more of a sensory space, like you feel the energy, like you can't, it's undeniable. And you go into certain forests where you feel they're a living, there's a living, their own ecosystem. It feels like a living being. You feel that energy. I think it's very real. And I think many people can understand what you're talking about. I think they can relate to it, and sort of putting it in sort of adding this kind of spin to it. We're like, okay, well, if this is a living, breathing being that you can feel energy from, how can that we not only protect it and support it, but actually, like, let's give it legal rights. So there's people have to answer for the injury they might cause upon it. And I think seeing it in this new way is so critical to shifting our consciousness of the natural world. It's really exciting work. And so thinking though too, you were talking about, your relationship, working with state, working with government. So it makes me think about, so if you can sanction rivers to have rights, right? Like if they are given legal standing and agency, my question is, who is their agent? Is it the U.S. government? Is it the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska's Fish and Wildlife Department? Like, what agency can be created that holds corporation and industry accountable if they do abuse or violate their civil rights?
So in that sense, you're talking about somebody who is kind of a trustee that's overseeing seeing the fiduciary interests of the river. And a lot of these entities, they may have conflict of interest that could complicate the things. The Corps of Engineers, they're doing a lot better than they used to, but they're still under a lot of political pressure.
Right.
One possibility would be a model I saw. There was an old program called Waterways, or On the Waterways. And the Hudson River, back in the 80s, I think even, had a river keeper. And this fellow would go around in the boat and see people dumping stuff into the river. He would address it, tell them they can't do that. They'd laugh at him, and they wouldn't be laughing very much longer. So,
right.
A lot of this is just enforcing the laws that we have.
Right.
It's not like laws; they're just enforcing them and trying to create awareness so that people build filter strips before the stuff goes into the river or whatever. I mean, this is not rocket science, it's earth science.
Right. Well, but I would expect though too that you might get a lot of pushback from corporations because anything they have to do differently, if they have to spend one more penny, they're going to push back, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, so a corporation, they're not evil, they're not immoral, but they're amoral. They don't have morals except to make money for their shareholders, and whatever they do to increase the bottom line for their shareholders, they're legally responsible for that. So it's really hard for them to do anything other than try to make more money. And making money isn't just about making more money, it's about cutting down what they're spending. Right. So that's the riddle, right? And so you were talking earlier about who would be the agent for this. So if you had sort of a model of a series of river keepers that would be funded by a pool of money from these different interests, from private, from state, from federal. So not any one group would have say over that because that's how money works, right?
Right.
So if you
that would be a problem. That would be more of a problem if one entity was, then they just start paying them off.
Right. Exactly. So you're talking about a pool of money that's very transparent. So this person, actually several people would have to do as big as these rivers are. They would be accountable to an independent thing, and they would be able to take these cases independently. That's really the only way it would actually work, because everything we do ends up corrupted. That's just the nature of human nature, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think, I feel like this question of who becomes their agent and caretaker is so key to me because it not only speaks to the present and the future, um, health and conservation of these entities, but that of the past and what was done in the name of government, US government, and in the name of conservation also. That's not always been the best sort of word.
Right.
And if anyone is, if anyone's interested in an example of what I'm talking about, just do a deep dive into like the systematic eradication of bison in the mid 1800s, the wolves in the 18 to 1900s. I think like there's a lot of history pointing to how this can go terribly, terribly wrong and has gone terribly, terribly wrong. And I think we need to know our history. And I'm just about accountability so that it doesn't happen again.
Right. And our society, we talk about worshiping God or having Christianity or whatever, but the reality is, what do people spend their most amount of time and energy on? It's about money. It's about monetizing everything.
Yeah.
And so that's always the quandary, because that's where it always comes down to. So you can start the most religious, spiritual thing you want. You can talk about the river. You can talk about these things. But somebody's always saying, oh, there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to make a few bucks here. It's like what we struggle with all the conservation, but the talk between shallow ecology and deep ecology. Shallow ecology being all the greenwashing, like this is a great project, and here's a nice wind farm, whatever, and it's killing hawks and all these other birds.
Right.
Because a household level of wind generator, solar generator would actually produce what that household needs. No, we have to have investors and we have to create a huge infrastructure for it that ends up like being a greater cost to the environment. So
yeah,
I mean, that's in our DNA. That's part of what we are as Americans, and that's part of what the society was based on. Is about the Grimm's fairy tale, like how do you get the magic pot of gold, and that's make more money, and we're all driven. And how do you talk an addict out of their favorite drug, and that's money for all. So
yeah,
that's a issue, but it's not.
What
we're talking. That's the underlying challenge.
For sure. And Jen, you had mentioned when you and I were talking before about like, well, who's really spearheading these campaigns? And you were talking about, what were you saying?
I just feel like this is where we talked a little bit too about where it always seems like it's brought by the indigenous people who are like, no, let's go back before this. Let's go back to like what you were saying, Lance, like back before where it was a given that these things are important and we want to preserve them and protect them at all costs because they are seen as equals and brothers and sisters, not as something an us and them, which is what I think modern society does, a lot of using and theming. And
and that's what you and I were raised with, that us and them,
good and bad.
Yeah,
and there's good and there's bad, and
but that's why I don't think we are all the same. And I think this is where a lot of culture and Western thinking that we were raised with is just so upside down and backwards,
There's a documentary about the Kogi Indians in Ecuador called Ecuador, Colombia. Anyway, it's called From the Heart of the World. And they've been trying to help us understand the world in a different way, the entire world, for a long time, since I think early 90s, late 80s. And they're still trying to bring their message to the younger brother, they call the people who don't understand how the world really works. And the world is beginning to stutter around us. It's beginning to dry up. It's beginning to change. I mean, it's 60s degree here in late February here, and that's just and I don't know that we're all going to change things because we are what we are, but it's good to be reliable and coherent witnesses to see what's going on.
Well, I think something you said is leading me to my next question, and I really feel like it's like the depth of understanding and the nuances and what we can learn from other cultures, and it makes me think about language. So if we can shift a bit and talk about language here, I think of how critical language is across the board, but in this context, I think it brings in a real depth. I believe language and the why of how we speak holds a real power and can tap into a deeper sense of connection to this earth. And or it can, at least when we think and speak in language that is steeped in agency and respect. And so talk about the Iowa way of speaking about a non-human being, whether that's a rock or a tree or a deer. How does language integrate into this conversation, and how does it play into the foundation of this whole movement?
Well, for one thing, we see, especially depending on what clan you are. So I'm Bear Clan, so the bear would be my relative.
Okay.
Relative. I mean, we're all relatives in different ways, but the close relative, we come from the same source on a certain level. There's a little story I had. I was working for the Forest Service up in Montana, and I was recording all these old mining cabins and stuff for a timber cut they were going to do. And I walked down into the timber, and I started smelling this smell, and it was a strong smell. I looked around to see if there were cattle or something there, and instead I saw 3 little bear cubs walking toward me.
Aw.
Where's mom? People was like, oh, but if you're out in the woods, first of all,
that's scary. Yeah, right.
Where? So I looked back and I saw her coming my way, ambling my way, and I thought, oh, geez, she doesn't even know I'm here. The wind's wrong, I guess, because I was smelling them first. And so I started backing off, talking, hey, human being here, not too loud, not just enough to make them aware. And they kind of paused. And then I was talking, human being here, blah, blah, blah. Then they started coming my way again. And I thought, this is not going well. And so I started singing the old song we had that basically says, Dalgure ise dake. Whatever you say, that's how it's going to be. And basically putting it to the bear to pity me. Pehan is what our traditional pehan is. To say I'm a pitiful person, I'm at your disposal. I know that you have the ability to take me apart, basically. But so however you're going to do it, I'm asking for mercy.
Wow.
And the bear stopped, and she let me go. And we weren't that far from each other.
Yeah.
So, when you talk to animals or talk to the universe, you're talking in the series of relationship. It's not an it. It is a you. It is a you, just like I'm talking to you guys. It's like same thing. Now, don't mistake it. It's not like the world's fuzzy and we're all in the Disney world and whatever. Bear could have just taken me apart.
Sure.
But it is a relationship.
Yes.
And a respect, and knowing that they have their way. And if she had taken me apart, I wouldn't have liked it. But it is part of nature too.
Right.
And truthfully, I feel like there's a power in you brought to that interaction a deep respect and a deference. And like some people would be like, I'm the human, I'm the top of the heap. And you weren't doing that though. You were respecting and meeting and saying, you're actually on top of me. I'm just a dumb human.
Yeah, it changes the whole energy. It changes the whole energy.
That's what I was going to say. And I do think that's powerful. And
we see things differently than people do as humans at top of the heap. It's kind of worked out that way because we're so good at being destroyers. But the thing is that when the creator, the earth maker, put us all on this earth, all the beings, gave deer that speed to take care of themselves, and the bear the strength and the hair to keep warm, and everything was given all these things. Human beings, we need clothes to keep warm. We're not the best. We struggle out in the world, So in our Indian ways, the creator gave us this thing called tobacco, which is a way that everything doesn't necessarily have to do what you want them to, but they need to listen to when you pray and ask for that kind of connection and that pity and that mercy and that help. And so that's why for us, tobacco is a sacred thing, is because it was the last gift that a creator gave to us because we needed help from all the world around live. And that's the thing. We're all dependent upon each other. There's this web of life that we're all dependent upon. And that's the thing the whole point of all the river thing is not to assert anything other than recognition of that inherent life and right to exist. That right to exist for these beings who were here long before we were, and that we end up treating so poorly, and that we won't be able to sustain our own life if it continues this way.
Exactly. And I think, I love the bear story because it's also like Jenny was saying, what you two were talking about. It's like it's shifting the energy to honor and respect, and then it's shifting the energy to it's a we, us, it's our, but then it's also knowing your place. It's knowing your place where you and the bear are, and you are not above the bear. That bear gets to choose. I believe my community, my world has lost that, where we have lost that understanding of we aren't at the top of the heap, and it is an hour, and it is a we, and some beings do reign above us. And I think that's so important to remember. And I think the beauty of your language, I feel like, explores and explains the nuances of these relationships in just a few words or just a word. And there is so much understanding held in just a word, and language is so powerful. And I truly believe that using a different language when you're interacting with something like Mama Bear, who's like, I'm going to decide if you're a problem or not, is really critical. And I think these are the nuances that we need to get back to. That I do believe my white ancestors had a long time ago. I don't quite know when we lost it, but we can get this back. We can learn from other cultures and other knowledge and be like, yeah, I identified at that. I can see that's true. Let's go that direction.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you go back far enough, and the Germanic peoples, they had the mothers, and they had the Druids had the holy oak groves, and you had all these, then we're talking about 40,000 years ago, and you got people living for 10, 20, 30,000 years with the same kind of going into the caves and painting things, and recognition between them and the natural world, the lions and the buffalo and all the bears and things that they shared that world with. And you can see the little children's footprints where they lifted the kids to put their little handprints on the wall.
Yes.
That was a stable way of life that everything continued to live unimpeded with the same kind of way of living for tens of thousands of years. And now we've almost torn apart our country in just a couple hundred years with our endless needs and wants and grasping that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lance, our last question we ask everybody, and of course, the whole conversation is the answer, but it's just a different focus. I think, so from your perspective, why is this conversation important? And how are we changing the narrative of how we see natural entities like rivers and creating a new connection between us and the rivers we live with?
You can't go backwards, and there's a saying, even God can't change history. So what you do instead is you take the parts from the past that your ancestors knew that kept you alive without having to always move because you just ruined that chunk of land and now you have to move to another chunk of land. And we often did the same, but we didn't destroy it to the point where we couldn't move back in 10 years and it would be all good again to reuse again. So we have no more places to go. I mean, we've pretty much, there's nowhere to go. There's no over the mountain, like Daniel Boone said, to go to a new place. We have, as I think the Eagle said, there's no more new frontier. We have got to make it here. So we have to begin to connect with where we live. Your house, when you go into your house, say, I'm glad to be home, house. And I'm glad that you're taking care of me. And that tree out by there, say hello to the tree. Your animals, if you don't have animals, the thing is that everything around you, you don't have to be a saint, and you don't have to not recognize the life in it, because we're all alive right now. Someday we won't be. And that life is what my true religion is just the livingness of things, that the life will live. And so whatever we can do to connect with people around you and to be part of just the beauty of the land around you, even if it's a front yard in LA, there's something about that yard. My grandparents used to live down in LA, and I'd go sit in a tree in the park, you know.
Yeah.
They're all around us, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend, is like, say hello to your car, say hello to your house, to that tree, to that cat that walks by. We're all part of the same thing. We're all living beings just trying to live. And the rivers too, they're just trying to live too and take care of us at the same time.
Ooh, yeah.
Said.
Well, yes. And thank you for the work that you do for all of us. I think, the more we can connect in the spirit of what you were talking about, and just so beautifully said, takes you right to the heart space of it all, and the kindness and the compassion and the respect is just it's a beautiful way that I believe we're headed that way. And it's funny because whenever I do come home, often I say hello house when I walk in, because she's a beautiful old girl, and I have, and this house was here long before I was, and it'll be here long after I am too. And same with the river that I live on, and same with the beautiful sycamores that I live with. And yeah, I think it's we should all have rights, and if we need to come from a perspective of us and then we can recognize that we inherently are born with rights, especially those that breathe us and water us and feed us and are the keepers of keeping Mother Earth healthy and balanced.
Yep, you said it. Dagure ise dake. That's the way you're saying it. That's what it's going to be. So hopefully something good will be here today. This is a good day. Make it a good day.
It is a good day. And Lance, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for your kindness and your humor and all the things. We're just so grateful to have you here, and we hope to talk to you another time again and pick that big brain of yours. And I will say, if
my head, they say your head is big. I said you can't hold an ocean in a teacup.
That's right.
Well, I was thinking when you said you're from the Bear Clan, I'm like, well, obviously, like, let me see your paws. I mean, you look like you're from the Bear Clan. Yeah,
there you go.
That's why that mama responded. She's like, oh, you're my cousin.
Oh,
that's
you're one of my people.
Yeah,
you're my nephew.
Thank you.
Or uncle.
Yeah.
Who knows what?
I love that you're from the Bear Clan, not the Hummingbird Clan. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Oh, I would not be able to fly very well.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't know.
Too many brains.
Bears, I've seen, they're very light in their toes. They're probably fabulous ballroom dancers. So don't you shy away. Well, Lance, thank you so much for joining us. We will keep in touch. Just one last question. Where can we follow you in this campaign? Is there, do you have a website we can follow and to keep up with the work you're doing?
I guess I'm a weirdo. I don't really have a website.
No, it's called Smart.
I think it is too.
I mean, I have friends on Facebook. Sometimes we do. We have a tribal national park that I kind of got going here, a catalyst for that. So we have a group called Iowa Tribal National Park. Maybe we can talk about that idea someday too.
Yes, please.
So it's a multi-pronged approach to try to save some little bits of nature that remain. So just look around on Facebook and try to look like a real human being, because I don't make friends out of people that obviously are bots or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
good.
I am, if nothing else, I am definitely human. Well, Lance, thank you so much. We will keep an ear out and an eye out. And I will say too, you can see what your tribe is doing through your website also. Can you give us that website?
Yeah, it's Gosh, now my brain is going. Just look, Iowa tribe of Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, just like the state, Iowa tribe of Kansas, Nebraska.
Yep.
And go find it.
Yep. It comes right up. It does.
Okay. And the other thing I want to say, we are also helping folks with the Mississippi effort to, about a year ago, there was a big march down in Davenport with the Great Plains Action Society. And I think there's a bunch of indigenous and non-indigenous people trying to help the world.
That's fantastic. Well, yes, the whole planet thanks you. And, we so appreciate your time. So please have a lovely day out there, whether it's 60 or blowing a gale out there in your area, and all the best. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. Torigun, which means in the future.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Takeaway. Jen, when you and I were talking, I actually said this was a takeaway that was really kind of hard for me to formulate. And it's because in the takeaway, we try to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger sort of picture and the bigger what we can connect to and then sort of integrate with and have a deeper understanding. I think there's so much we could go over, but like we always say, you've just listened to it and everyone has their own takeaways. I would say, though, that I wanted to kind of refer back to when we talked about that this might seem like a bold move and what Lance and his tribe and team are doing. And yet I feel like it's so kindred. It's like it's a result of enough of us not taking the natural world for what it really is and how truly Mother Earth keeps us alive, right? We're so disconnected. And I believe it's this idea that it's this ideology that we live outside and above nature and natural entities like rivers, trees, bodies of water like lakes and oceans, and many ecological systems that are so maintained within themselves. Like we talked about, like he was saying, like a river is it's almost like a human body in river form. And it's like this whole system within a very specific, like you can see a river. It's a thing. He's like, it looks like a snake, moving through the landscape. And I think seeing them, like I was saying, it's almost like I'm now trying to see them like a species that we need to protect, like an endangered species. And he was saying, and you can look at it like a being with not only energy, but spirit. And I think that's what Lance is trying to, that's rewriting and retelling this narrative of, and we talked about when in the conversation, everyone who's like sat by a river, stood on a mountain, these different things, like gone into specific forests, like they hold their own energy for sure. And maybe you're not comfortable saying they have a spirit. It's just, do we even need to get that far to see the protection that they need, right?
Yeah.
It just seems like this is a way forward for sure.
Yes, definitely a way forward, and at the same time a way to return back, because like he was saying, this is how indigenous people have always held it, and that's so much older than all of the rest of the cultures that we are familiar with and we come from. And so in a way it feels radical and new, but it's actually ancient. And that's where, like, when he was talking about all the different things, the places that this has happened in Ecuador in 2008, and
different countries.
And it's always been
even our country, right? Like
and it's always been spearheaded by indigenous people, because they're just like, hey, we've been trying to tell you this for a couple thousand years. And so that it's just reminding us that this is this is actually not a new way of looking at it, but it feels like a new way to us. And when you were talking in the interview about when you were listening to Lance talk on NPR and you felt like you got hit in the head with a 2x4, like when we were talking, I had this phrase that a podcaster I love that has nothing to do with nature. She's actually she does a true crime podcast, but she was talking about, she has a phrase she talks about all the time. It was a BGO. It's a blinding glimpse of the obvious. And that's what ran through my head when he was talking, is like, it made so much sense to both of us immediately. Like, of course they should have protection. Of course they should. And like you even said, you don't have to take a leap to believing there's a spirit in the water to believe that it needs to be protected, because we are not separate from these things, like you said. And we are so good at that in our modern society, to think of us and them. And we've talked about this millions of times in millions of interviews of this. We're all actually connected. And if there are no rivers and no bodies of water and no pollution-free sources of water, we're all in a big pickle. Quite a pickle. And so it's just an interesting thing. Like, where would be the downside to protecting it? And as Lance was saying,
go ahead.
He was just saying, well, unfortunately, when money gets involved, it does muck things up. But so they're just trying to remind us, let's just pan out a little. Let's not be so myopic. Let's just take a little bit of a broader view here and look at this. And I feel like if you can do that, there's really no argument, but it's hard to get that perspective sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. It's so true. And I think, and it's like you're saying, what Lance is doing is in direct response to this ideology of we are separate and not integrated. And I know this is going to come off sounding really condescending, but it feels like when a parent tells a young teen, right, where you're coming into this consciousness of suddenly it's just all about you, right? You can be very myopic and very self-focused. Right. That it's like a parent saying, I've told you very many times, if you keep with this behavior that you do on repeat, there's going to be a consequence. And it reminded me of when we talked to Monica Gagliano in the episode, The Intelligence of Plants. She was like, Mother Earth isn't mad at us or punishing us with these radical climate changes that are happening.
It's not just punishment. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Literally just a natural consequence of repeated bad behavior.
Right. Cause and effect. Yeah.
That's right. It's a cause and effect. It's not even like, oh, well, now you're in trouble and you're going to get punished. It's like, I've been asking you, and then I've been telling you, and now I'm going to try to help you as much as I can.
You might be too young to remember this, but do you remember there was an ad on probably in the early 70s? It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. Do you remember that ad?
I don't.
And I don't remember any more context than that, but that's just this big storm happens, and I can't remember why. And then this just very calm voice just says that. And that's just what came into my brain.
That is funny. We are going to try to find that.
Yeah.
We'll try to find that and
we can
put
link
that
it
in the links.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much to Lance Foster for speaking with us. If you want to keep a little bit of eye on what's going on, you can get on the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska.com to keep appraised with and learn more about what his tribe is doing. And like we say, please jump on our website, kindredpodcast.co, for the links and everything related to this episode and the episode itself. You can find on our website. Follow us on Instagram as well. And please share this episode. Again, it's just, I kind of hope it's like the two things that we're saying, like a 2x4 to your head as well. And then what you're saying, Jen, is it's so obvious. And I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We certainly did. And we hope to talk to Lance again and pick his brain about some other things that he knows so much about. So we might be having hopefully we could have a check back in with Lance at some point. So thanks again, everyone. Lots of love from us. Take care of yourselves. take care of your backyards and your rivers as well. And if nothing else, just hear what Mother Nature is trying to tell us. So we will see you next time. Lots of love.
Bye.
Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jen, produced by Kat Gaddy and myself, sound production and editing by Dan Cooper, original music by Ellie Grace, and our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and feel free to contact us through our website at kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find details about Kindred Plus, our subscription service, as well as links to our social media accounts and show notes.